You could, but I see that more as a question of domestic policy. I'm not quite sure how much of an impact it would have necessarily. I know there's a suspicion out there that Singapore is a kind of shop front for Myanmar, but I think there's just this suspicion out there, and I don't know anything more about it.
My question targeted appropriately regarding your concluding theoretical statement about the moving from non-interference to constructive engagement. It has been like into a decade for ASEAN towards prepared to taking Myanmar, despite some critics in '97. Why is ASEAN taking so long to move from non-interference to constructive engagement? And it only happened once there's inside implosion, which is the Second Revolution. As Minister Mancohan mentioned, Myanmar is a time bomb. So from the next phase, constructive engagement to sanction, directed sanction, if the constructive engagement turn out to be not successful, then will the time bomb explode before even ASEAN able to realize that, creative.
Thank you very much.
No, constructive engagement is just kind of like creative excuse. Thank you.
Commentary on this issue. It seems to me, however, regardless of how ASEAN sees itself, that we still have a very immediate major problem. So, can you hear me? There's so silent gesticulating.
I was going to get an question.
Sorry. Pre-empting the question. Anyway, I rather thought that the main issue that we are dealing with is that there is still a major problem in Myanmar. And that is a problem that needs to be addressed. I think what Rema and Mr. Mark Noy brought up is that we really need to focus on it now, regardless of how ASEAN may have changed it or changed their own position. ASEAN, having a responsibility to start the war, needs to try to figure out at least not only for their own aggrandizement or own protection, a situation or solution to the problems that face them. I wonder whether ASEAN could draw upon its experience in dealing with the Cambodian problem in the same way dealing with the entrenched military junta in Cambodia and move them towards some sort of solution on the long-term process. I'm just questioning whether or not this is indeed a model for ASEAN to follow. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Kampong. I'm a lawyer by training, and yes, I do have other interests. It's actually 778. But this question is really for Professor Lin. You've mentioned that the sanctions actually would be against the ASEAN Treaty, the principle of non-intervention as entrenched in the ASEAN Treaty. Would an expression of collective revulsion also be seen as being against the principle of non-interference? Because if having a state, hey, what you're doing within your borders is revulsive to us, and is our open support for the UN envoy, the stated mission of effecting change in Myanmar, also against that principle? So if that is the first step, then what's so wrong about going on to sanctions? And a second question I've got would be, in terms of, since we're on topic of sanctions, I think there's a sliding scale of sanctions that are possible, right? And I think in your speech you made a passing reference to smart sanctions. So my question is, in your assessment, would very, very targeted sanctions against the junta be effective? Because I take the point that general sanctions against Myanmar could affect the people. Although, I think if the economy is such that the wealth being generated, such as it is not going down to the people, I'm not so sure how much worse they could be affected. But I take that point. So if that being the case, wouldn't specific sanctions go a long way towards driving home to the junta that their actions carry consequences for them, not for the people, but for them. And if we're not prepared to impose sanctions now, why not the threat of sanctions sanctions if certain milestones are not met, which I think is something that you alluded to in your reference to an agreed roadmap.
Thank you. Either general sanctions or sanctions against the general.
Why has ASEAN taken so long? The first questioner asked this. It's a question of interest. ASEAN had an interest in not taking an interest before, and now it has an interest in taking an interest because it's trying to look credible to the rest of the world. It's trying to have a charter. It's trying to say we're this very modern organization. We're going to be plugged into East Asian and Asian integration. We want people to put money here. We want people to take us seriously. We're a really nice, civilized bunch of people. So it's the right time to look as if you're doing something. In relation to Michael Ewing Chow, I really have to thank Michael Ewing Chow and actually thank him in the text, although I didn't say that up there. Michael is one of the foremost Singapore scholars on Myanmar sanctions. Michael asked about what we're going to do about the fact that there is still this major problem in Myanmar. From this point, I think Mr. Mahathir's point. My colleague, Dean Ian Holliday at the Faculty of Social Sciences, long-time Myanmar scholar, he's got an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea because it's so counterintuitive. He believes that if you want to solve the real problems that real people face in Myanmar, you should send all your businesses to Myanmar. It's the opposite of sanctions. American companies should be encouraged to go into Myanmar. British companies should be encouraged to go into Myanmar. European companies should be encouraged to go into Myanmar so that through their attempt to achieve some corporate social responsibility, we might get somewhere. It's an interesting idea, and my own idea is not that far off from it. The other question that Mike Ewing Chow asked was, what makes this so different from Cambodia? I think there's only one answer to that. It's the Cold War. Because Cambodia was about a domino theory. It was about Vietnam being the sharp end of the Soviet Union coming into Southeast Asia. And I think it was something that ASEAN was prepared to go to the hilt to deal with. I don't see ASEAN having that deep an interest here. And then the final questioner asked, would sanctions, I think there was a kind of slight misinterpretation of what I was saying, but I think the question boiled down to this. What is the basis for the new revulsion rule in light of the ASEAN treaty? Well, there is an international law rule out there about how you interpret treaties. The subsequent practice of those countries party to a multilateral treaty counts towards how you read the treaty. So while the text remains the same, non-interference yesterday doesn't necessarily mean non-interference in exactly the same way today. Yesterday it could mean that even if Myanmar's problems affected ASEAN, non-interference means non-interference. Today it could mean that when it does affect ASEAN, non-interference has an exception to the general non-interference rule. That's one way of looking at it. My original draft was very complex. It had to do with whether ASEAN is looking to develop a regional customary regime. I wouldn't go into that. My more direct response to the final and I think the most important question that was asked about why I don't seem to like sanctions is this. I mentioned it only in passing in the talk just now. Why do I want more of this liberal stuff, more of this engagement? I think you need, okay, if you want to try and affect someone's behavior, you start lending them money first. Because if you don't lend them money, you can't call back for your money. You don't have a stick subsequently. You need to get them in with you first. That's what engagement should be about. You need a stick which you don't have today. You can't just threaten Myanmar with the fact that it can't do business out of Singapore.